from my point of view, from a cognitive point of view, one of the things that you see is, this sort of idea where I'm going to show the kids something, and then I'm going to get them to do it, and then I'm going to give them a test, and then, and then I'm going to show or tell them something, and we're going to do it, and we're going to keep going round and round. What's interesting about that is, if you look at it from the brain point of view, here's a kid's brain, there's the front and the back, I'm taking a slice through it. Going through this cycle, we can get their thinking to be more complex. We can get them to think in more complex ways, which we see as being reflected analogously in this reflection of more activity in their brain. But that gets them up to the barrier. These are the kids who are pressed up against that barrier. Because what we see is that to go beyond the barrier, and this is different imaging technique, but you can see these parts of the brain, they've got some similar activity here and here. But what we see is that there's all this region of the brain at the front that's now becoming active. That when we shift from scaffolding knowledge and procedures, those first two columns, to scaffolding thinking, inferring, problem solving, these frontal regions of the brain become active. And what those regions of the brain do is, they're the regions of the brain that are responsible for the stop and think stuff. For the, okay, so I know this, and I've got this problem. Hang on, how am I going to put it together? I'm going to try this, I'm going to sequence this, I'm going to value that, and that's important and that's less important. Those sorts of practices, those sorts of activity in the brain are going on when we are scaffolding towards this inferring and problem solving. And so if that barrier is real, we can see it in some of the NAPLAN questions and the students' responses. We can see it in the kids' heads, depending on what we do, depending on our practice, depending upon the activity that we're generating in their brains, depending upon the activities that we give them. And that barrier is reflected somewhat by, the difference between these pillars, the knowledge and procedural understanding, and the putting it into action and the student's disposition. So what I wanted to leave you with was this idea that we should just break through that barrier. We shouldn't consider it as an either-or. We shouldn't consider it as, okay, I'm going to tell them this, I'm going to do the Instructable, and then we're going to put the learnable on top of that. It's a continuum between the two things. And the way that we can move between these two, this continuum, is to think about the questions that we're asking the kids. When we ask the kids, what's the answer? I'm going to tell you something, I'm going to give you a skill, I'm going to get you to apply it and tell me what the answer is. We're limiting them into this space, into that Instructable space. But when we're asking them, what do you think? What's your judgment? How would you go about doing this? How else would you go about doing it? How else would you go about doing it? That what we're doing is, we're asking them all the things, all the regions of the brain to become active when they think about what an answer might be, but we're also getting them to stretch. We're also challenging them. We're also linking it to their prior learning in their lives and what they're thinking about. And I'm not just talking about open questions. I'm not just talking about shifting from closed questions to open questions. I'm talking about really strategically, purposefully, intentionally driving actual thinking. And so what I'm going to suggest is, from today, the sorts of things that you might think about is, ask yourself who's doing the thinking. When I let go of these kids' hands, are they going to be able to walk themselves? Or are they going to fall over straight away? Am I doing the thinking for them and imposing it upon them, only to then let go and take away the imposition so they fall over? And I would suggest that, that you might not say something to the kids if they can think it. So instead of me saying it and them thinking it, you might ask a question to just get them to think it, for them to generate it, so that they're doing the thinking rather than just sitting back on my thinking. For me, one of the things that comes out really clearly from all of that research about students' cognition, how do they put their knowledge into action, the stuff that we've told them, how do they make the most of it, that only comes when we value that problem solving, that putting their thoughts, their knowledge into action. When we're modelling it, when we're saying to them, oh, I don't know the answer to that, so let's find out, how would we go about it, what would we do? Let's drive the thinking together, so that they see us as learners, rather than as the people who are delivering knowledge to them. And then finally, this idea of practice, not drilling, so we're just going through and developing a skill, but actually authentically practicing, being able to put their knowledge into action. And that might come about through the sorts of questions that we ask our students, just as one example. So to drive some reasoning, say, okay, well that might be the answer, but what made you think it? What were you drawing on? What were you putting together in order to get that answer, to get that thinking? And then to ask them perhaps some things about, so what's it like? Were we seeing something like that before? So what we're doing is, this is in danger of looking a bit Bloomsy, and I'm not going to Bloom's higher order thinking or anything like that. I'm being much more purposeful and strategic. I'm thinking about the kids analogizing. I'm thinking about the kids drawing parallels between their learning at different times. I'm thinking about the kids thinking in a relational way. Not just, here's a bit of information, here's another bit of information, here's another bit of information, but linking it together, but them forming the links, not me telling them the links, because that's just another bit of information. Those questions about, what if? And then I'm going to leave you with a question that's perhaps the most audacious and outrageous idea. Ask them a question which they don't know the answer to. Ask them a question that they can't know the answer to. The hand-holding stuff that we've been good at is because the kids are good at answering the questions that we ask them. That they know that when we ask them a question, that there's probably an answer out there somewhere. And the ones who know the answer, put their hands up. And the ones who don't know the answer, shrink back. But if we ask them all a question, and they expect from us questions that we know they don't know the answer to, that will get answerable in the end when we've had the conversation, when our science or our maths or our English or our history or whatever it is that we're teaching, when that serves this conversation, that there's a compelling answer out there somehow, but we've got to construct the pathway to get to that compelling answer. But we can't just go, yeah, there's the answer. For me, that's taken us into this ground that's covered by what's instructable and what's learnable. South Australia has been fantastic about getting the kids to do that instructable stuff. And we can see across the state really great examples. And the next challenge for us, as I say, is blurring that boundary between what's instructable and what's learnable.